So in this video, we're going to talk about how to perform operations with functions. So remember, we talked about function notation, which is basically our way of naming functions. Once we've determined a relation is a function, we can use something like f of x to represent it. So what we can do is we can perform operations with functions if we're given two or more functions in function notation. And you can add, subtract, multiply, or divide them using the rules we learned when we were working with polynomials. So suppose you're given f of x equals 4x squared and g of x equals 2. So these are two different functions. If it asks us to find f plus g of x, that means take f of x and add it to g of x. So we're going to do 4x squared plus 2, and we can't simplify this any further because these are two unlike terms. If we have f minus g of x, that means subtract f of x minus g of x. And so that's just going to give us 4x squared minus 2. So basically, a lot of what we're doing here is substitution, and then we're just simplifying using the operations we learned when working with polynomials. Suppose we have f times g of x, that means takes f of x and multiply it by g of x. So that means we have 4x squared times 2, and when we simplify that, we get 8x squared. If we have f over g of x, that means divide f of x by g of x. And so if we have 4x squared over 2, we can simplify that because 4 and 2 will reduce, and so we have 2x squared. So let's try this example. It says given f of x equals negative x squared plus 7x plus 6 and g of x equals 3x squared plus 2x minus 4, find f plus g of x. So basically remember that f plus g of x means take f of x and add it to g of x. So what we're going to do here is we're going to replace f of x with negative x squared plus 7x plus 6 and then add it to g of x, which is 3x squared plus 2x minus 4. Just like when we're working with polynomials, what we want to do is combine like terms. Negative x squared plus 3x squared will give me 2x squared. And then I have 7x plus 2x, which is going to give me plus 9x. And then I have 6 minus 4, which is going to give me plus 2. So 2x squared plus 9x plus 2 is my simplified answer. So suppose we have f of x equals 2x plus 3, g of x equals 5x squared minus 2, and h of x equals x squared minus 4x plus 5. So now we have three functions, and we want to subtract them. We want to find f of x minus g of x minus h of x. So let's go ahead and plug in what we have. So we have 2x plus 3, and then minus, when we describe g of x, we want to put it in parentheses because the minus is going to distribute to both terms. That's very important to remember because a lot of people will forget to distribute the negative. And then h of x is minus x squared minus 4x plus 5. And so let's go ahead now, and before we do anything, let's distribute those negative signs. So that's basically going to switch all the signs in these polynomials to the opposite. So we have minus 5x squared, and then we have plus 2. Here, when we distribute that negative, we get minus x squared plus 4x, and then minus 5. So let's go ahead now and combine our like terms. So I'm going to start off with the x squared term so that our final answer is in standard form. So I have negative 5x squared minus x squared, so that's negative 6x squared. And then we have 2x plus 4x, so that's going to be plus 6x. And then we have 3 plus 2, which is 5, and then 5 minus 5 is 0, so we don't need to write that 0. It's just going to be negative 6x squared plus 6x. So now let's try this problem. So here, once again, we're subtracting, right? F minus g of x means f of x minus g of x. So let's go ahead now and plug in what we have. So we have 4x cubed minus 2x squared plus 6, and then minus, and then we have 5x cubed plus 3x squared minus 10. Remember, once again, that second polynomial needs to go in parentheses, so we distribute that negative to every single term. So we have 4x cubed minus 2x squared plus 6, and then minus 5x cubed minus 3x squared, and then plus 10. So let's combine the like terms. We have 4x cubed minus 5x cubed gives us negative x cubed. Minus 2x squared minus 3x squared is minus 5x squared. And then 6 plus 10 is going to give us plus 16. So negative x cubed minus 5x squared plus 16 is our simplified answer. So let's try now this problem. So here we have f times g of x. So remember, this is f of x times g of x. So let's plug in what we have. We have 3x plus 1 times negative 5x plus 2. So remember, whenever we're multiplying binomials, we have to use FOIL, right? So we need to multiply first times first. So 3x times negative 5x, which gives me 3 times negative 5 is negative 15. X times x is x squared. Then we multiply the outside terms. So we have 3x times 2, which is 6x. And then we have the inside term. So we have 1 times negative 5x, which is negative 5x. And then we have last times last, so 1 times 2, which is equal to 2. So now if we go ahead and add up all the terms, we have negative 15x squared plus 6x minus 5x plus 2. So if we simplify this, remember these two middle terms can combine. So we have negative 15x squared, 6x minus 5x is just 1x. So we have plus x and then plus 2. And so this is now our fully simplified answer. So let's now try this problem. So we have now f over g of x. So remember that this means take f of x and divide it by g of x. So when we plug that in, we have x squared minus 3x minus 10 divided by x plus 2. So it's very important to remember that since this x plus 2 is in the denominator, we have to make sure we don't include any values that make that denominator 0. Because remember, we can't have a 0 in our denominator. So if I set x plus 2 equal to 0 and I solve, I get x equals negative 2 as my exception. So whenever I write my answer, I'm going to write x cannot equal negative 2 just to make sure that everyone knows that that's excluded from our answer. So the easiest way to divide this is to go ahead and factor the numerator. If you factor the numerator, it's going to turn into x minus 5 times x plus 2. And what will happen here is that common factor of x plus 2 will cancel from the numerator and denominator. So our answer is going to be x minus 5, but remember we have to include that exception that x does not equal negative 2.